Able to seal him. Here's the pass. Oh, what a catch! Leaping into the air and pulling it down is T. Higgins. Burrow facing pressure. Goes over the top. Wide open is Chase. And he splits the defenders for the touchdown. The Cincinnati Kid. Hubbard's got a convoy. Chased by Andrews. At the 30, the 20, he will score!
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Maan, it was nice to watch some touchdowns being scored in our opening sequence there. Since we didn't see any scored today, rough day. We're going to get to it. We're going to discuss the game today. A lot to dive into, really. The Bengals obviously fall to the Cleveland Browns 24-3. Joe Burrow goes to 1-5 against the Cleveland Browns. He just looks different, right? I mean, Joe Burrow looks different when he plays this football team. I have no idea why. We talked about it at your house today watching the game. It's just incredible. The Cleveland Browns will probably go out next week and get beat by 20 points. But we just cannot figure this team out. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty at all. They have our number. Easily Joe Burrow's worst game as a Bengal. It was ugly. I mean, that's the only word I can come up with. If somebody would tell me the Cincinnati Bengals would only have 6 first downs in a football game, it's the same old script, Jake. 25 minutes time of possession for the Bengals. The Browns had 17, 18 more plays. They ran for over 200 yards. And it's frustrating. I think the debate that we have with training camp and the way Zach Taylor prepares his team for the opening first 2 weekends of the NFL season, I think that needs to be it's a legitimate discussion to have, because this team was not ready today. I mean, nobody can spin it any other way. They weren't ready.
Well, I mean, you throw the bad weather in, right? The monsoon that we played in, but weather cannot be a factor in these football games at any level, high school, college, pros. You have to factor in bad weather. It's just part of the game. So bad weather not being an excuse either. I do want to, before we talk about the game, let's go back. I want to backtrack real quick to what you were just talking about, because I think you bring up a good point. And, after the game, Joe Burrow does his presser and Zach does his presser, and they both say the same thing. Listen, this is not the same Bengal team that you're going to see in December and January. And I agree with them. It's not going to be the same Bengal team. This Bengal team is still going to win the AFC North. It's still going to be playing in the AFC Championship. It's still going to be competing for a Super Bowl. But at some point, Maan, these opening games, they are so important, and it's almost like the Bengals are like, well, we lost the first game, so it's not a big deal. This is not who we're going to be, so let's just move on. But it is a big deal, right, Mom? Because the Bengals start 0-2 last year. They have a very slow start. They look awful at the first 2 weeks of the season, just like they did today, and it cost the Bengals the chance to play a home game for the AFC Championship game. So these games do mean something, and I think it is a discussion to talk about where, we've got, as Bengal fans, we've got to stop being complacent when it comes to, oh, well, this is just how it goes. We look terrible week 1, but this is not going to be the team we see in December and January. But all of these games matter. And not only do they matter, Mom, but when you play a divisional opponent, it is like 100 times more important to win those football games. And the Bengals just looked flat. I mean, offensively, they look like they haven't played in 8 months, which they really haven't played in a very long time together. So I do think it's a discussion that needs to be had. I don't know in this episode, but we need to talk about the way this thing is approached because, man, offensively, we just looked awful.
We did. I said it a couple minutes ago. Only 6 first downs. I I don't want to use the weather as an excuse. We've played in bad weather games the last couple years, and we've always excelled. Uh, I don't know. This is just my opinion. The game plan was very timid, very scaled back. I don't know if they're trying to ease Joe in, extremely conservative. I don't mind the conservative approach early in the game, playing in a hostile environment against a team that's really amped up against you. But the play calling was just bizarre. They only had two, I think, 2 out of 15. They were 2 out of 15 on third down conversions. They had multiple third and short, and I say short, under 3 yards. Weird play calls. Some passes down the field on the sideline, a weird pass to Irv Smith, an attempted pass that would have never been a first down in the first place. 3rd and 1, you get stuffed. I get so frustrated with the run game. Joe Mixon had a 22-yard run. Chris Evans had a couple 6, 7 yard runs. They seem to be finding a groove, and then they go 3 pass plays. I mean, offensive linemen, they sort of get in sync when they run block a little bit. They get ready to go, and the running backs sort of get energy from it. I don't know. The game it was a really odd flow for the offense in the game, and just it seems like it always happens against the Cleveland Browns. Things are out of whack. We only had the ball for 25 minutes. If you look at all of our horrible losses over the Browns the last few years, it's the exact same stat line almost.
Yeah.
Next week, we play at home. The Cincinnati Bengals have 9 home games this year. 9. At worst, we need to be 7-2 at home. At best, we got to win them all, obviously. If we go 9-0, 8-1, or 7-2, we're going to be fine. We're going to get 4 or 5 road wins. We have got to dominate Paycor Stadium. We're going to be there next week. We have got to win that game. It's stupid to say next week's a must-win game, and I'm not saying that. But daggone it, we have got to win because I don't want to go 0-2 in the division, and we got to dominate at Paycor. We got to get that win.
So let me go back real quick because what I was asking you is, Mon, is there something to this? Is there something to every year the Bengals come out looking flat? I think under Zach Taylor's regime, I think the Bengals are 1-4.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. You're right. They are 1-4.
1-4. He's had 5 opening day games. He's 1-4, Mon. I mean, is there something to that? That's what I'm asking you. I need to understand.
I think it's a legitimate debate to have. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think it's a debate to have. I think if they lay an egg next week and they come out and they look terrible, I think it's a legitimate discussion to have. I know this is a bad example because they got beat badly today and I picked them to win, the Steelers. But Mike Tomlin and other NFL coaches had their starters out in the 3rd preseason game, giving them 15, 20 snaps. I get the risk of injury, but if you're that afraid of injury, you must not have a lot of faith in your backups. Get these guys out there, get them lathered up, let them play some snaps. Let them play some snaps. I made a couple tweets on Twitter today. A couple people I respect, I always reply back. They called it a country club training camp. Sort of made me laugh a little bit. But, it's a legitimate discussion to have, Jake. I know last year they went on this big 8-0 run in the regular season to get, and 10-0 run if you count the playoff wins. We can't depend on that every year. That's not going to happen every year. You're not going to win 8-10 games in a row. We got the win next week. We got the win. And I'm hoping the people, Duke Tobin, the coaching staff, everybody, they're taking notes. And maybe this will be reevaluated next training camp. But we got 16 more games to go, and let's see how it shakes out.
Well, and again, like I said to start the show, this is not the same Bengal team that we're going to see a couple months from now, right? This team is still one of the best teams in the AFC. I don't think there's any doubt about it. But just the slow start every year. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of a sense of urgency, to start the season because as we've seen the last 2 years, these games matter. Playing at home in the playoffs matter, Mon. Having an opening bye to start the playoffs, those things matter, Mon. Slow starts are not something to be complacent about and just throw aside like, oh, okay, well, again, this is how we do things. Well, that's eventually going to catch up to you, is what my point is. And I don't think it will. I'm not saying that, but man, oh man, we just looked awful today. I would say embarrassing to lose to the Cleveland Browns like the way the Bengals did. But let's go through some stats real quick, Mom. Uh, the one good thing is, knock on wood, is we came out of the game healthy, and I think that's something to praise. Again, you talk about the training camp stuff, you talk about the preseason. There's definitely a fine line there, because you look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who have been known to practice for 3.5 hours every day and just beat the living tar out of each other. And look at that. Look how badly it works out for them. They had 2 serious injuries today. Hopefully those guys are okay and they get healthy, but those things catch up to you too. So there's definitely a fine line there. But let's look at these stats. You said it first. Joe Burrow, the worst performance as a Bengal, 14 of 31 for 82 yards. He was only sacked 2 times, which again is definitely a positive after what we saw against Pittsburgh last year in the opening weekend. But Joe Burrow, again, we talked about that. I honestly, I don't think it's anything to do with health. I think it just has to do with timing and these receivers. And Joe Burrow and T. Higgins looked like they were completely on a different page. I think T was targeted 7 or 8 times with 0 catches. That's just unheard of. And they looked off. They just looked off. Deshaun Watson for the Browns, again, not a stellar performance. He looked terrible as well. But they made plays when they had to make plays, and that was the difference of this football game.
Yeah, Burrow and his veteran wide receivers looked out of sync. That's what one of the things that surprised me the most. It's not like this is the first time they've ever played together. They have 3+ years or 2+ years. Tyler Boyd's been here the whole time. They just didn't look like they've ever played together. I mean, they were all over the place, and Higgins especially. There's some miscommunication there. If somebody told me at the beginning of the game, today, that if the Bengals were going to have more turnovers, their defense had 2. Cleveland got no Bengal turnovers, and the Bengals were going to have more sacks, I'll tell you the Bengals would win. Cincinnati ended up losing by 21 points. I mean, we got more sacks. We won the turnover battle. And, those are metrics you look at that are positive. Like, hey, if that happens, things are probably going to go well for you. It didn't happen. It was just, multiple things, Jake. I think the play calling was bizarre at times. And we saw some continual things we've seen the last 2 years. How many times over the last 2 years have we seen the Bengals unable to convert 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2? That happened today. It happened multiple times today. If you can't get 1 yard when you need it, you have to, I don't know, they have to do something about this rush attack. I'm so frustrated by it. It is. Last year, we ended the season averaging 3.8 yards per carry. Guess what we got today? 3.8 yards per carry rushing the ball. Frank Pollock is a run game coordinator. Something's got to give there. We just have to be better at running the ball.
Yeah, let's look at that real quick. Joe Mixon, 13 carries for 56 yards. Again, the Bengals hold Nick Chubb in really, 18 carries, 106 yards on 18 carries. Not a bad day for the defense, really. I mean, that's a better performance against Nick Chubb that you'll see. But then you throw in Deshaun Watson's 50 yards rushing, You throw in Ford's 36 yards rushing, and then now you're at close to 200 yards rushing, which again is something that we just can't have happen. Um, you know, once again, 75 yards rushing as a team is not going to win you a lot of football games. Let's look at receiving real quick. Again, as I said, T. Higgins just non-existent today. 8 targets, no catches. Jamar Chase 5 catches for 39 yards, and again, the weather was just awful today. Over on the other side, again, you see Elijah Moore with 43 yards. He was a leading receiver, but nothing really that jumps out to you. I do want to talk about really quick. Those 2 third down plays were absolutely brutal, Mon. You have both of those are in the Brown side of the football field. You have 3rd and 5, and you throw a 50-50 ball, which again, it's 50-50 in good weather. In that kind of weather, it's probably about 20-80 that you're going to complete that ball. On 3rd and 3, we throw it downfield. On 3rd and 5, we throw it downfield. In a monsoon just makes absolutely no sense. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm questioning Coach Taylor, but you said it earlier. It was just bad play calling, bad football all around for this Bengals football team.
Yeah, it was a head scratcher. It's a frustrating day. I got 50 things in my head right now that I want to talk about. They're all just, so many. I'm trying to piece them together. The play calling was suspect. Did you see? Correct me, Jake. How many pass plays did you see in the middle of the field? It seemed like everything seemed outside, down the sideline. I didn't see anything, any crossers, any plays, inside the hash marks. Did you see any? I don't remember one pass play.
There weren't a lot, Mon. There weren't a lot. And some of that might be some of the interior pressure that the Browns were getting can cause that. But for the most part, you're right. I mean, no crossers, everything to the sideline. And, in weather, when you have wind cutting across the field like you did today with that kind of rain, it's your safe balls are in the middle of the field, but, they just weren't there for the Bengals today.
I think I just like when it comes to the coaching staff, like I don't want to be critical. They've taken us to a Super Bowl and 2 FC championship games back-to-back years. Adapting, Eric said it, the Bengals do script plays. It's a monsoon out there. It's horrible conditions. Do you maybe have to hey, let's rip up this script. Let's do some other things because initially, like that one pass that Burrow threw looked like a shot put. I mean, it literally wobbled. It went backwards. It was remember that early in the game? I mean, I don't know what happened.
The ball came out of his the ball came out of his
it just looked absolutely terrible. In the third quarter, when Dax Hill got the interception on the tip pass, it was 10-3. We got the ball at the 50-yard line. I'm like, here it goes. We're going to come down. We're going to tie it. I don't think – I mean, the Bengals literally – I think they got a pass interference a couple plays later. I think they ended up only getting maybe 15 yards after that interception. It was just a horrible performance. I mean,
that was the third. I think that was the 3rd and 3, right? Or was that the 3rd and 5 when they tried to throw it downfield? It was one of those two.
They did, and I think the replay, Trent Irwin was up the field. That would have been an easy 6-7 yard completion. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sure his leg is fine. I'm just this is just my opinion. Conservative play calling. Maybe Joe was just I don't want. He did look a little rattled at time. He really did. This is the worst I've ever seen Joe Burrow. He's my guy. He just signed that big contract. He's catching a lot of heck on Twitter from fan bases of other teams. That's just the way it is. He'll regroup. Next week's going to be a big week. They just got to put this behind them and get ready for the Ravens.
All right, let's look at the defense right now because I do think the defense played well enough to win this football game. They did give up 200 yards rushing, Mom, but they were on the field a lot. Jermaine Pratt had an incredible game, had a sack, 11 total tackles. Nick Scott comes in with 11 total tackles as well. Again, we talked about Jermaine Pratt's sack. BJ Hill throws in a sack. And I think Hendrickson had a sack, right? Yeah, Trey Hendrickson threw in a sack. Defensively, again, I don't think we played bad. I really don't. The defense won the turnover battle 2-0. You got to win those football games on the road. When you win the turnover battle on the road, you have to win those football games. And man, did you feel like watching the game today? You just wanted. You're like, come on, defense, make a play, get us a touchdown, get us an unconventional score, because the offense was just so poor. This is one of those days where you needed something like that. And we haven't even talked about the field position yet, because I think the Bengals, the first half average field position was like their own 16-yard line or something crazy like that.
It was. I think it was a 18, 19-yard line compared to the Browns, who started in like maybe a 34-yard line. That's huge. And we were saying it. Our punter had a rough day today. Time of possession is huge. Field position. I said it a little bit ago. If you look at the box scores from the last 4 or 5 Brown games, they're almost identical. They really, really are. We just are. It's a bad matchup for us. We've got to figure out a way to combat these guys, because we will play them again. But it was an ugly game, Jake. Just flat out ugly, and I'm sick and tired of talking about it already. And it just ended a few hours ago.
Well, we see 17 total punts. 10 by Brad Robbins for 400 yards. I mean, that is just terrible, Maan. Terrible. What a just oh God. And his first couple punts were just actually no, the first one was inside the 20. The next 2 or 3 were absolutely terrible. He kind of bounced back there later on in the football game. But when you're punting the ball 10 times, I mean, that's just atrocious. And really hard too, like I said, to kind of wrap your mind around this football team and what happens when they play the Cleveland Browns. I said it earlier, these teams beat the hell out of each other, right? I mean, they beat the hell out of each other. That's the AFC North. That's AFC North football. And I really didn't get a sense that either team really dominated. I mean, I thought both defenses played well at the line of scrimmage. The Bengals only got sacked twice. There was a lot of pressure, but the Bengals got a lot of pressure as well. It wasn't like the Cleveland Browns came out and beat the hell out of us. It was just really I hate saying this as a coach, but this was more the Bengals beating themselves than the Cleveland Browns beating the Cincinnati Bengals. It really, truly was.
I think the Bengals are a better football team than what they showed today. I really do. I want to give Cleveland some credit. They played hard. They played in the same weather conditions that we did. They just seem to adapt a little better at it. They are a better running team. I guess when you have these inclement weather, teams that run better tend to play better when it's horrible out there. I just sometimes I don't want to be a negative, but sometimes Zach Taylor, can he adapt in game quickly? If you have scripted plays that you're sticking to, well, these may be great scripted plays when it's 75 degrees out and sunny, but when you're having this horrible weather, how can you throw the ball 30, 40 yards down the field? Maybe run a little bit more. I don't know. I'm just talking as a fan that watched the game that was hard to watch. That's not the Cincinnati Bengals that I know. And I have all the faith in the world that they're going to play a lot better next week. They better, because if they're 0-2 in the AFC North, that's going to be tough. And
I'll
got to put it behind us.
What you were talking about just a minute ago, I can tell you from a coaching point of view, every offensive coordinator goes into a football game at every level with a script. Usually the first 15 to 20 plays are scripted. And again, that's high school, college, pros. They all script out those first couple of plays. But like you said, you have to go off script. If you need to go off script and you need to adapt, you need to go off script and adapt. And I don't think we saw that from the Bengals today. I don't think they went off script. I think they stuck to the script, and again, I understand it because Joe Burrow is still, to me, one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't care about what happened today. So I understand wanting the ball in his hands and letting him throw the ball downfield, but when you're playing in a monsoon like that, I mean, you've got to be able to move the football and get first downs and run the football. And the Bengals just did not show that today. And as you said, Maan, they come in, and we'll talk about this on Friday. They have the Baltimore Ravens coming in, and this is a must-win game right now. And Cleveland goes and plays Pittsburgh next week, so there's a very good chance by the end of next weekend everybody's 1-1, and we're back to 0-0 in the division, which is a good thing. Is what we want to have happen. A couple, as I said earlier, a couple serious injuries. We don't know to the extent, but Marcus Williams and J.K. Dobbins, both for the Ravens, really tough injuries today. And again, that's where that fine line is, Mom, because as I said earlier, the Ravens are known for beating the hell out of each other in training camp. And this is 2 seasons in a row now. Marcus Peters goes down. J.K. Dobbins goes down again, last year. So there's definitely a fine line to where you need to take training camp. But the Bengals have not figured that out yet because, man, I'm getting tired of watching these opening day games because we just look absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I feel bad for the Ravens fans. I don't think there's a team that has more bad injury luck than them. I mean, it's terrible. But hopefully those guys. I'm hearing the Dobbins one's pretty bad. I don't know. I guess they're doing more tests for Williams, torn pectoral muscle, but I wish them the best. I never want to see opposing players, good players, any player get hurt. And I don't want those excuses if your team wins. They go, oh, we had a bunch of injured players. I don't want to hear that, but we'll see. We'll see how we'll find out more, and we'll have more information on Friday's show.
When's the last time the Bengals played an entire game, 4 quarters, and did not enter the red zone? When is the last time, Mon, that has happened?
I don't know.
It's been a long time.
It has. I mean, just revisiting your question from earlier in the show, the way Joe looked today with his veteran wide receivers, it looked like a guy that needed some sets and reps in preseason. Obviously, with his leg issue, and they were just so out of sync. I mean, these guys have played together. They played in huge playoff games. They played in Super Bowls, and they look like, as Eric and his son said, looked like a preseason game today. It really did.
It really did. It looked like a preseason game. Well, Bengal Pulse listeners, we are starting the regular season, so the Bengals Pulse will be with you every Monday and Friday this season, bringing you all this great content. On Friday, we will be discussing the Bengals-Ravens game. Mon, the entire Bengals Pulse crew is making the trip to Cincinnati. It's going to be a fun trip. We like you said, this, I don't want to say must win next week, but we have to win this damn football game next week, Mom.
Yep, they got to dig down deep inside and find a way to do it. They beat the Ravens the last 2 times they played them. They're playing with Lamar. I saw a tweet today. All the AFC North quarterbacks today really struggled. Nobody was nobody lit it up. It's going to be a good game. I think the Paycor atmosphere is really going to help the Bengals. You're going to get that energy you didn't see today. And the Bengals have become a very, very tough out at Paycor. I'm glad we're at home. I'm glad that we're going to be there.
And the Raven Killer, AJ Green, going to be ruler of the jungle. Should be a very good sign for things to come. That is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. As always, guys, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you listen to us on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. If you like this podcast, make sure you give Maan and I that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. As always, follow Maan at the Fire Maan on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter, Bengals_Pulse9, and on Instagram, the same without the at, Bengals_Pulse9. And as always, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Wincinnati Podcast Network. He is Maan. I am Jake. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you on Friday.
See you guys.